Hi there, it is Heather from the CraftLit podcast. Whether you are listening to our current book, Cranford, or not, I wanted to give you a heads up as to why this particular bonus episode is being released. In Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell, TEA, plays a rather important role. And as a consequence, I reached out to Andy Hayes of Plum Deluxe Teas. He was actually one of our first honest to goodness sponsors of episodes back in 2015. And his company was very young then, and it is established now, and their tea is so good. So I got a chance to ask him all of those nagging questions that I had had about tea, like why is it that sometimes the instructions say that to use tea that's just off the boil or considerably less than a boil? I got answers to everything. So if you've ever wondered about tea, some of its background, and why it functions the way it does in a mug, this is for you. If you're watching this episode on YouTube, you will see visuals that we have included to try and clarify some of the things that Andy and I talk about. If you are just listening to this, you can just listen to this. We're also releasing it just as a bonus episode on the regular podcast feed. But that's all. I just wanted to let you know what you're about to listen to and why we recorded it in the first place. I hope you enjoy this, and I hope you're enjoying Cranford. If you're not listening to Cranford, you might want to take a look. We'll link out to the playlist here, and on the regular podcast episode, we will link out to the book on the craftlit.com site, so it'll be easy for you to find if you need it. All right. Have fun listening. Please do visit Plum Deluxe Tea, especially the CraftLit page, and see what kind of tea we like best. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye. But hi, I've never talked to you like virtually or any other way.
Hi, I'm real.
So when did you start Plum Deluxe?
10 years ago, May 1st.
Okay, so we really did. You found me right at the beginning because
I
we were
think
doing
so.
North and
Yeah.
South, and that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I wanted to get you on here with me because 30 years, 35 years ago, I got to see Mr. Twining do a talk at UCLA Extension on tea. And I've forgotten a lot of what he told me, except for the last question that I'm going to ask you. So there's so much more specificity in teas that I see. And like right now, I'm drinking my Bookshop blend white,
hmm
which has very specific instructions on it to steep under boiling, so 75, 175, 185 degrees for 2 to 4 minutes. So one of my questions is, how do you calculate that? How do we know? And what happens if you do it wrong?
Yeah. Great questions. I have answers. Yeah. So the bookshop blend is really delicious, but it is more intimidating because of the steeping instructions. And that's because it's white tea. And the white teas, very much in particular, say not to use boiling water. Now, before I say why, let's back up for a second. White tea, green tea, oolong, pu'er, and black tea are all from the same plant. They're the same leaves. It's just how
Okay.
they've been treated. So specifically, white tea is the top two. You've heard the saying two leaves in a bud.
Yes.
The white tea is those leaves at the very top. So they're very delicate and they're processed least. So in order to get good flavor out of them, they don't like boiling water. That's the same for the green tea as well. They've
I
just not went through the oxidation process, which just makes them a bit more hardy and allows more of those like tannin notes and those more earthy, sultry, perhaps acidic, tannic notes to come out. The white teas and green teas taste very different. And I'm putting them together in this case specifically because of the steeping instructions. They don't like boiling water. And if you put boiling water on a white or a green tea, it will be better. I guarantee it, it will be better. Even if you do 2 minutes or 3 minutes, like
won't
not
matter.
very long, it's bitter. It's too hot. So
Oh,
there's a
good.
really easy solution to the green tea, white tea problem, and that is to have them as iced tea. Because if you put them in cold water and leave them in the fridge overnight, you have beautiful iced tea. This is actually how I prefer green tea. I don't love hot green tea, just to be honest, but cold iced green tea and white tea are delightful. They're very flavorful, and you also get a lot of the aromatic notes, especially with the white teas. They have this beautiful like bouquet to them. Think honeysuckle or the last day of lilacs in the spring, like just a little bit of that. And you get more of it when it is cold brewed, I have noticed. The trick to cold brew is you
Yeah.
do a teaspoon and a half in an 8 ounce jar of water, cold water, overnight. Now, this applies also to any tea you want,
Okay.
but specifically the greens and whites. If you don't have a kettle that has a temperature setting on it, then you can just cold brew them. Now, if you really want to get into greens and whites and you really prefer them hot, then you need to just invest in a kettle with the temperature settings. And there are websites, we won't name any of them, and retail stores where you can get those for fairly cheap. If you want to have a good tea journey, especially hot tea, you just need to grab one. They're not that expensive.
It's been amazing to have that notation on there to be able to tell.
It really is. It seems intimidating at first, but Heather, I don't know how you feel, but once you got it, you're just like, oh, I get it. No
Uh-huh.
problem.
Yeah.
It's much easier. And you just push the button, it
And
gets the temperature, off you
yep.
go. So
Well,
I really do suggest that. And I know that is another 25 bucks and you've already
yeah.
spent 25 at the tea shop or whatever, but it
Yeah.
really does make a difference.
No, it absolutely does. And I'll tell you the other thing that makes a difference is when Heather starts reading the fact that there are instructions on the bags and following those instructions, because that is, it's you grew up drinking tea, just tea bag tea, and no thought is given. But you saying that about the green and the white tea doing well as iced tea, as an overnight steep, that actually reminded me. I had a question for years, which is we used to get apple juice in big gallon jugs. My great grandmother would always, finish the apple juice, rinse it out, fill it up, and put 3 tea bags in the top and stick it out on her front porch and make sun tea. It
Hmm.
doesn't matter what I do. The only way I get that flavor is by making tea that way. And I like that iced tea flavor. If I try and make it with a tea that's supposed to be like a cold brew, you can do it in the refrigerator, it never tastes the same. Or even on the countertop, it doesn't taste the same. What's going on?
Hmm. So just nostalgia play happening in your
It
head.
could be.
Are
It,
you leaving the cold water in long enough? I always say overnight because I think it technically needs 8 hours
and
fully infused, but I just like overnight because you're
easy.
having to prep it in advance. So you do want to you want the juice to be worth the squeeze, as they say. So,
That's so true. Oh, that's good.
um, yeah, for the sun tea, and I feel like there's been a real resurgence of people on social media wanting to say that sun tea is dangerous or bad for you. And
What?
I don't think we need to have the conversation about that today. Yeah, people say that it harbors bacteria. And if you feel
Oh,
that way, yeah, then just fast forward. You don't have to
yeah.
do the sun tea. Sun tea is not boiling and it's not cold. So
It's
that's
that mid
it's
range.
temperature that you're liking, that you're getting that specific flavor for. So
That's
if it works,
interesting.
do it.
And now that I understand the temperature differentiation and how much of an effect that can have, it makes a lot more sense why sun tea, especially I grew up in Southern California. So if you put it out on the porch in the sun, it warms up.
It does.
Pour it over ice and then it's just perfect. And as far as the bacteria goes, my great grandmother was very clean.
I'm sure she was. I'm sure there is some truth in it. And sure, sun tea sitting there for a few days. Yeah, I wouldn't probably drink that either. But
Yeah.
a lot of us grew up with that and we're still fine. Our gut microbiome has not been demolished. There's other bigger problems
Oh
to
my God.
tackle.
Holy cow. All right. That actually answers a couple of my questions.
Okay, we're on a roll.
So you said that the green and white tea are the very top of the tea leaves. That's the two that are the most delicate. But then you get oolong, you've got Assam, you've got all these other things. I know how jasmine tea is made because of meeting Mr. Twining, but how are the other tea leaves, the ones that are, I'm assuming, older and therefore stronger, they've been on the plant for longer. Is there another level of stratification before you get to the darkest black tea, or is it all just treatment from that point on?
We're getting more into the oxidation process. So, yes. So, if you just think about it as a gradient, white teas have very little done to them. Green teas are oxidized slightly, so on and so forth. Oolong and blacks and pu'ers are oxidized.
Okay.
But once you get to those, oolongs and pu'ers are also fermented. So another layer of treatment. And if you're thinking like, wow, this all sounds like complicated, keep in mind that the tea trade was invented when all of this stuff had to go in a wooden chest and
Right,
travel on the ocean. So there had to be a way for it to last.
right.
And also this we're talking like centuries of research and innovation to come up with these things. So it's no different than, let's just use another example of something that's not a beverage.
Okay.
Cheese. There are lots of different kinds of cheeses. If you just even said cheese from France, there's lots of different kinds, different ways
Conversation.
there's processed. There's ones where the bacteria is on the outside. There's ones where there's stuff on the inside. The British started stuffing stuff in there, cranberries and things. So it's no
MCDale.
different. These products that have existed a long time have a wide variety of things to choose from. And the same advice applies. If you want to really learn about them and you're feeling really excited about them, it's a journey and enjoy learning about it and saying, oh, that sounds interesting. What does a fermented tea taste like? I don't even know what that means. Like,
Yeah.
go somewhere so you can try it. So you can say, oh, wow, now I get it. Now I get it. Same with what we were saying with the white teas. I don't know if you're going to like it iced. I do, but I'm not you. So try it. And if you don't like it iced, but you really like the fact that it is the right amount of caffeine for your afternoon slump, then you're just going to have to get the kettle or just try to like not boil it. So when we are talking about learning new things and exposing people to how deep the rabbit hole goes with tea, I just want to remind people that it's supposed to be fun. You're not getting another degree. We're not taking out student loans for this. We're just going to have fun with it and learn as much as feels right.
That makes a lot of sense to me. And it's true. The world that we're in right now, adding more stress is definitely not interesting to anybody. But you mentioned caffeine and white tea, the tea that I'm drinking, does have it. It lists as having caffeine. I always thought that it was some part of the aging process and treatment that brought out caffeine, and that something like the tiny little white leaves at the top wouldn't have been carrying any caffeine. Clearly, I am wrong.
They're the lightest amount of caffeine.
So it's good for an afternoon. It's not going to keep you up all night.
Yeah, that's right. And the same with the greens too. They have a little less caffeine than a black tea. And a lot of that has to do with, you think of the black tea leaves are like the most oxidized, so there's the least amount of moisture. They're almost in a way more concentrated. That's not a good word for it technically, but if you just picture them, like there's a lot of tea fiber per scoop than there
Right.
is of the greens. Greens are like very leafy and airy. And if you think that's where the molecules of caffeine live, they're a little thing that are in there somewhere. So you're just naturally getting more of them. The fact that we put the boiling water on as well, and those teas can also take a longer steeping time,
Hmm.
more caffeine molecules. So those kind of play off of each other. And people have found hacks over the years to try to brew like a black tea with less caffeine or more caffeine. You could play around all day and see what you think, but that's the basics of it is those lighter whites and greens do have caffeine, but it is less. And the
Not
whites
as
have
much.
the least,
That makes sense.
interestingly enough. Yeah.
So that's one of the questions that I had for you that is very craftlit and Britain oriented with teapots. There are two different things that I've heard in British instructions for making tea. One is you need to warm the pot first, And the second is when you're spooning a teaspoon per person, knowing how many cups your teapot can hold, you always do an extra one for the pot. So those are two things. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a good idea, but I figured I could ask you.
That's a good question. I have to say, as someone who has lived in Britain, I sure do love the teapot being warmed or the mug. So that
Right.
applies to mugs too. Basically, anything that's a ceramic or china, you can put water in it to warm it up. Now, I do feel like there is some lore around the fact that people used to do that because they were putting warmer water and not the hot water in because the ceramics used to have a tendency to crack because
Ah,
kitchens were colder, we didn't have central heating. So that used to be a thing. That's obviously not a thing anymore.
yeah,
We even have glass, so like a glass that you can put boiling water into, and even if it's cold, it's not going to crack at
fine.
all. But I will say it is very satisfying to get some hot water into a mug and then you replace it with the hot water that will be for the beverage. Because if you think when that water and the cold ceramic touch, the heat from the water is immediately transferring to the
Right.
ceramic, and that's why the ceramic warms up. So I really love that. I think it's just lovely, especially because I'm a kind of person, especially for a teapot. I love it when the tea stays really hot for a
Yes.
while. Like if
Yes.
like I love drip coffee because the coffee pot is like on the heater thingy, so it's like really hot, like it's a temperature consistency the whole time. I love that. That's
Yeah.
just how my like tongue works, as I like the beverages that are hot to be hot the whole time.
Yes.
There's a lot to be said to that. Now, the thing about the extra scoop for the pot, I think the history of that comes down to in China, like if you went to a more traditional tea ceremony, if there was someone who had recently passed that was very important to the people in the tea ceremony, or if you wanted to just have reverence to the tea gods as they were, I'll just keep them generic for now because it kind of depends on where we are and who we're talking about. You would set out a place setting for said person or being who is not there, and you would
Right.
pour for them. So I think that's where
Ah,
that comes from. I think more in modern times, particularly in British culture, British folk like their tea to be quite brisk. You know, this the saying of the spoon should be able to stand up on its own.
yes.
So I think adding the extra tea in is just to make sure that it's not too weak. Especially if, like you said, if you know how much water your teapot holds, but maybe you actually don't know exactly or haven't really played around with the proportions that you like. I think that's why that's the case.
That makes sense because especially if you're serving other people, having watery tea would really be
Yes, no,
something that should not be done.
bit of a faux pas for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So that leads me to one of the more contentious questions in the craftlit world. Tea cozies, are they a benefit to humanity or proof that we are actually and in fact in the worst timeline?
I think they're a benefit.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's nice. But come on, guys, for those of you who are haters, I mean that's fine. But think about like they're very popular in British culture.
Yes.
And where is Britain? Britain is an island in the North Sea. It's an
Yeah.
island in the North Sea.
There's
She
plenty of
cold,
reasons to
she wet.
keep her
The
warm.
cozy is nice.
Yeah.
Cozy is nice. The other thing too in British culture that I can share is that heating homes is expensive.
Yeah.
Utilities are expensive in Britain. I know that in America, utilities have gotten expensive, but they have always been expensive in Britain. And also, a lot of people live in old homes in Britain. And when I lived in Scotland, I lived in an old building with a turret. So it was old. It was right behind the Parliament. It's amazing, but it was
Wow. Did you
old.
get wind through the closed windows? Did you get breezes?
Well, the turret part was in like the stairwell, so you would like out in the hallway. My apartment didn't have that, but very thin windows, thin walls, and they've made improvements, but most of those buildings are tenement, cinder block, or very old style concrete that doesn't, it's not as sturdy as here. America has always had very dynamic weather. Like so many people in America live in places that are really cold in the winter, really hot in the summer. So we have houses built a lot differently than
Yeah.
there. Hey, like it is nice to have a teapot that is kept warm, that's keeping you warm, so you're not
Right.
having to run up your gas bill so much. Just being practical, to be
No,
honest.
that absolutely makes perfect sense to me. And it also makes me very happy because tea cozies are fun to knit. But the other thing is, okay, so if I have my Brown Betty pot, which I have upstairs with my fabulous Koigu tea cozy around
Mhm.
it, if I am making tea for myself in the Brown Betty, which is not a small teapot like the one I'm holding, I put in enough scoops to keep me going with tea for 4 or 5 hours because I'm going to be sitting at the computer and working. And I want to keep it warm for as long as I can. It seems to me that doing something like one of the warmers may not be the best idea, but also if I've put the hot water in the teapot and if I'm using black tea, so I put boiling water in, I've already put the scoops in, it's going to be steeping.
Yeah, I would definitely use a pot where you can remove the leaves.
Okay, so you have the little strainer that you can
Yeah.
pull out.
So, for our listeners' benefit, teapots started out with a little piece of wire, like in the spout, and that would keep the leaves. Or people would have, like in Victorian times, they had, instead of an infuser, it looks almost just like a drip cup that goes on top of the cup, and it has little tiny holes in it. And that's how they would keep the leaves out of the water in your mug.
Oh.
But now, especially in America, it's much more common that the teapot does not have something in the spout, or that you have to have the little cup thing, little strainer for your mug, but that there is an infuser like basket that is in the middle of the teapot, and then you can remove them.
So the
And I do,
strainer
yeah,
thing like
oh,
that.
exactly. That's
Okay.
exactly right. Yeah. You want to be familiar with that.
Okay.
Now, if you have an old pot that does not have an infuser basket and you haven't found an infuser that will fit, because sometimes you can just get
Yeah.
lucky with that. You can just make, like with paper filter bags, make some tea bags with your favorite loose leaf, put them in, and then fish them out.
Just cheesecloth or anything
Yeah,
that's
you can do that with anything. And I think it's worth it. It's a little bit of extra effort, but if you're going to hang out for 4 or 5 hours and do that, you don't want it to just be like kind
yeah.
of slimy at the end, which is what I feel like happens. I used
Yeah.
to, when I lived in the Netherlands, a friend of mine and I used to always go through 2 or 3 pots like that on a Sunday. And that's the thing I always hated was like if you forgot to take the bags out, you almost want to add a little water or something to
Yeah.
it because it just gets, I don't know, not slimy, but it just has a
No, it's when you
viscosity
really
to it.
can put a teaspoon in and it will really stand up.
Yeah, it's just not as nice.
That's
And
like
then you're
percolator
heating
coffee.
it. Yeah, and then you're heating it and you're just like, not even enjoying this anymore.
Yep. That is exactly my memory as well. And it's making me wonder why I didn't figure out that I could have put the tea into cheesecloth earlier for a big pot of tea to stay warm without having to make the last couple cups
Well,
hard.
I think I think there's a hesitancy for people. I've noticed people new to loose leaf tea in particular, or to tea in general, want to be told exactly what to do. And I try to
Ah,
always remind people that this is your money, you're spending money on this. You need to enjoy it.
right.
However you want to make it and enjoy it is great. If
Just
you want to,
experiment.
yeah, if you want to put milk in everything, okay. I don't like that, but I'm not the one drinking it.
Yeah,
If you hate things iced that I was just talking about, okay. If you think the boiling water thing is too complicated and you just want to boil everything and you don't think it's bitter, super.
great.
I'm glad that it's easy for you.
Yeah,
So I think saying that I wish I'd realized about the teapot, like sure, maybe you just missed that tip or whatever, but there is this tendency for people to play along with the story that tea is hard and complicated and intimidating, and it doesn't have to be.
yeah. No, really, because one of the things that I love about your website now is your tea quiz. so that you can come in as a complete newbie and go, yeah, I don't know what kind of tea I like. And you have really good targeted questions. So I tested it because I know what I like at this point. So I was like, I
Oh,
wonder
yeah.
if this quiz is going to be accurate. Let's just give it a little test. And it was. It was
Oh,
dead
great.
on accurate.
Great. We
Yeah.
try.
You've lived everywhere. So you've lived
I
in
have not. I have traveled a lot, but I've lived in Europe in two different places and then just America.
wow. You've lived in two of my favorite places. In Scotland's my family goes back. We're Clan MacPherson.
Okay. Do you have your tartan and everything?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. And what I think is interesting too, if you're a tea person, is those are very different places as far as tea culture. Americans are very familiar with the UK, and this Anglophilia is a big part of American culture. Lots of people have an affinity for all things British, but continental Europe is very much dominated by the East Indies Company, which was a Dutch corporation. And a lot, I wouldn't say most, France has a lot of big tea names too, but a lot of grocery store brands and what people really develop their palate on as young persons are Dutch companies, actually.
Oh,
And I
dang.
think that stems from that history. And if you're not familiar, the big difference is these are very generic, right? But British people prefer simpler teas, black teas, stronger the better, milk and sugar.
Yeah.
That comes from a lot of the places that were part of the Commonwealth, like India, made those teas very readily available in Britain. So that's why British people love all those breakfast blends and a good Assam, which takes very well to milk.
It
It
does.
just really, it really does. One of my favorite things is a tea blend with Assam and you put milk in it. Just those two pair well. Whereas the East Indies was a lot of nations near the equator and was much more spread out. And so you'll find in continental Europe, this applies to anywhere, I would say, in general, fruits and flowers, botanicals is very popular, very common. Herbal teas, very popular, very common. Like people have a love for the more complex blends, similar to
Mhm.
probably what I sell. But people also do like the simple things. Like one of the things I love in Holland is if you go into a cafe and you want a tea, you can order like a mint tea, and
Mhm.
it's literally a glass with hot water and a thing of mint
And
shoved
I'm
in it. Like just the mint, like really literally the leaves
right.
in it. You
Live
know?
live mint
Yeah.
was previously briefly live mint and now in your cup.
Yeah.
Does it
So,
flavor the water?
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Oh my God, I have mint growing out back. I'm going to try that tonight.
You can totally do that. Great for an iced tea.
Yeah.
Great with a bit of honey too. Because it can get quite, I'm about to say minty, that seems quite obvious, but you
No, it
know,
gets astringent. There is that kind of.
astringent, yeah. Whew.
So you mentioned tannins before, and that's where my big memory of Mr. Twining doing his show, his song and dance came in because he did a slideshow. So we got to see the layer, I mean, mounds of black tea that was interspersed with jasmine leaves, and then more black tea, and then more jasmine leaves. I mean, I don't know how
Oh,
many.
I'd love to have seen that. That sounds so cool.
It was incredible, but it was also one of those things where he's like, and that happens 3 times, and every time, all of those purple flowers get taken out by hand until the last time. And I'm like, wow, labor costs in the States, this would never happen. And that's amazing. And what a skill set to know like how long to let these things bake out in the sun and be able to tell when it's right, especially when stuff's down in the bottom. But then he started talking about tannins and he started making an equivalency between tea complexity can very easily be just as complex as wine, good wine. And a lot of that was tannin related as far as he was concerned. But that's when one of the octogenarian women, my friend and I were the only people under the age of 50 in the room, and we were like 22. So one of the very kind, very lovely elder women next to us raised her hand and she was being timid about it. And he called on her and she said, "Is it okay to put sugar in my tea?" And he came back immediately and said, "Would you put sugar in your wine?" And her eyes got huge. And then another woman,
Oh,
very bravely at this point, because this one just got shot down, she said, "Is milk okay?" And that was the moment where it was like the Winston Churchill, that is something up with which we shall not put. But instead, he's, "I won't stop you as long as you put the milk in the cup first, but I wouldn't put milk into my wine either." And it made me so happy to hear you say that assam and milk was really a good combination because that's one of my favorites. That's a very comfort childhood taste.
yes, yes.
But yeah, he was quite clear about
That's
the complexity thing.
interesting. That's interesting. I would agree that the tannins in the tea are a big part of why the flavor profiles are different. And also you think about tannins are part of the fibers of that plant. And we have teas from different places that have different profiles. Like we were just saying, Assam is a place. It's a place in India. Darjeeling is a place. It's a place in India. A lot of teas are named after places. Teas that have a famous flavor profile are named after places, to be more clear.
That makes sense.
And the same is with grapes. Same with
Champagne, Bordeaux.
same, yeah, same with grapes. So
Yeah.
I do think that equivalency is true. But I'm sorry, Mr. Twining, like here in 2025, people put fruit in their wine and call it sangria.
True.
Things that people have expanded their palates. So I understand. I'm not a tea purist, so I'm not gonna.
You've
I'm
made
gonna.
so many little old ladies so happy.
And honestly, let's take the milk for example.
Yeah.
Milk, the fat solids in milk, combined with the tannins. And that's what makes the flavor so specifically satisfying. And I'm not a food scientist, so I won't try to explain it much more. But that is why that is so satisfying. Now, the other thing about the sugar is that he's referring to black tea, Mr.
Yes, he was
Twinings,
absolutely.
probably referring to black teas. And now tea with other things in them are very popular. And specifically, let's just use a mundane example, a tea that has some dried blueberries in it.
Okay.
If we make that tea and put a little, some kind of sweetener in it, it is going to help you taste those blueberry notes more. It's going to just gravitate to them. It's going to help your palate recognize that blueberry flavor more.
Sweetness. Yeah.
Yes. And so I think that is why that is much more popular now. As for the comment, I need to also talk this out loud. He said, put the milk in before. That
Yes.
surprises me, and I don't like that. I personally, the tea steeping process to be only the water.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't really like that. But there's nothing, but then, I could, I'm trying to really think about it. I'm trying to be open-minded about it. I do see the instance where you go to the stove and put some milk and then some chai in there and try to make a traditional Indian chai, and that's steeping in something that's not water.
So the
So
one
there
thing that I
is,
thought maybe, and this was me in the middle of the night 2 years ago going, "Oh, I wonder." The milk is cold. You want with black tea, as far as he was concerned, you wanted water that was just off the boil. So anything under 212 degrees. I wondered if by putting the cold milk in there and your tea, if what you were doing was lowering the temperature to release fewer tannins and make basically a milder cup of tea. Plus, the thought part that I didn't know anything about with the fat binding with the tannin molecules, that's so cool. But that was all I could, that was the only reason I could think you would do it first.
yeah, but in my mind, I feel like it still should be the other way around because of that
Yeah,
reason. I don't know.
yeah. I,
And,
he didn't
and,
explain why.
nor was he required to explain himself.
No.
I think if you're listening and you think I'm so curious about that, or I put my milk in first and I love it, then that's
Then do
great. Like
it.
yeah, it doesn't really matter. You could make the case for the flavor difference is like 5%, and a lot of people might not be able to even tell the difference. You might be a person that does.
No, that's true. That's just like people with wine. There are some people who are like, it's a box of $2 check and it's just fine. It does the job. There are other people who will cook with that, but not drink it. And then there are other people who will just say, "Oh, hell no." And that's all fine. It's life is too hard for people to get their back up about. whether you put milk in first or last.
Agreed.
So, okay, Plum Deluxe has been my favorite go-to tea for 10 years. And I know I have listeners who have done the monthly ever since they started listening to North and South and heard about that. So, one of the things that I really love is it's an investment because you're getting something that is handmade, but the amounts don't make it feel like, oh my God, if I don't like it, I'm going to be stuck with something and I'm going to feel like I have to drink it even though I don't like it. And then you just wind up with a bad memory and it's horrible. Your sizes are great, but even more than that, the amount of flavor that you pack into some of these is extraordinary. And one of the things that I love, and I can show that the back of the Bookshop Blend White, although I'm getting a bad glare off of it. There's a lot going on in there. And it's the white tea, but it's also cinnamon and apple pieces, which I love. I'm assuming dried apple, orange, and black currant essence. There is a lot of flavor in that sucker. How did you do you wake up in the middle of the night and have to take notes and just go, I came up with a perfect tea and then go play?
I do have to keep a lot of notes, yeah. Especially for a tea club, you get 12 each year that you're
That's right.
committed to. I take a lot of inspiration from like food and nature, just seeing things. But also, I lived in Europe for a decade of my life, a very influential decade. So I was exposed to a lot of flavor profiles that are not as common here. So I
Sure.
just think I have a different perspective on it.
That makes sense.
Our community, you guys also send us lots of suggestions or a conversation, and I always think it's really fun, even though it takes a long time sometimes, but
Yeah.
I always love to make someone's idea come true. I think it's a good idea. Like one, I know that it's just on my mind because it's coming up, and I thought it was so weird, but I tried it and it was really good. When somebody said they liked putting slices of watermelon in their Earl Grey, and I was like,
What?
that's so interesting, and it is an orange. And we do a big celebration of Earl Grey right as we go into summer, and
Uh-huh.
that's iced tea. So I was like, I'll just try it. And I tried it, and it was really good. So
Really?
we do sell one for a limited time that's like Earl Grey, and it's got watermelon in it.
Oh, now I have to go. Earl Grey is absolutely my favorite, so now I'm going to have to go back and get some of that.
But yeah, I do keep a lot of notes. I think it's the best part of the job for sure, is coming up with all that stuff.
Do you have a
Um,
kitchen that's just full of glass jars of things that you can mix and test?
It used to be like that. Now I have my own set of tools. So we have our warehouse here in Oregon where we work out of, and I have my own kind of set of stuff and like smaller quantities of things. Or we work with a lot of very small family-owned farms, and so sometimes they'll send me things that they have discovered, and like, oh, what do you think about this? And I will work off of those. But then we also have tea comes in sacks, which is what
Like,
chests turned into. Yeah, tea used to be in a chest that was wooden, and obviously that's not very practical anymore. So now it's cardboard, but it's in a sack. And so I just use those supplies too. And here we're talking, I'm at home where I work a lot because I don't have a dedicated office at our warehouse anymore. And the closet does have a ton of bags of things. So yeah, it is a little mad professory,
I love
like the
it.
messy. But I do kind of like that, like especially if I am working on something and can't figure out what I want to do or how I want to do it. I like the serendipity of just kind of like looking through things. Like we just for the spring did a lychee tea, and I never done a lychee tea, and I was always really interested in that flavor profile. I remember
Yeah.
having a lot of it when I visited Hong Kong when it was still part of Britain. And I remember really enjoying the process of I don't eat a lot of lychee. I'm not like a lychee expert. So it was like what goes with it and how do we want to make it interesting? And it's just for a spring tea, so I want a little botanical note, but not too much. And so it was fun to just be looking through my files and making notes about, like, oh, what about this or what about that, and seeing. That's like a lot of fun.
That sounds so lovely just to be able to play with tastes and smells that are so good. I love black currants in general. But yesterday I was watching a video that also is connected to Cranford, although this guy didn't know it. He did a thing on tonka beans because they're banned in food in the United States. It showed up in Cranford because somebody talked about her mother's letters being scented with tonka beans. And it's
Oh,
this
interesting.
vanilla almondy kind of earthy smell. Everywhere else on the planet can use it in food. You would have to eat like 40 pounds of it to make yourself sick, but 40 pounds of anything would make you sick. So I don't know
Yeah.
what. But but in that video he also mentioned that blackcurrant is one of the things that was at one point, I don't know if it still is, was restricted the United States, but for different reasons when the FDA first started. The number of flavor profiles that we don't have access to in the States is a surprise.
Yes. Another one is ketchup flavored potato chips. Just throwing that out.
You lie.
Those are the
Where?
best anywhere, especially in Commonwealth country,
Really?
Australia, Britain, and they're so good.
Oh my
It's a
God.
tomato potato chip. Like, how
Yeah.
bad could it be?
How? No, it's
Yeah,
tomato, salt.
our potato chip flavors suck. That's my vote
Yes.
compared to everybody else's.
Yeah. No, I heartily agree. But then I like the Dutch, well, and sometimes British, really good crispy, hot crispy French fries with real mayonnaise.
Yes.
So good.
Yeah, they do fries well there.
Yeah.
And we have our own takes that are pretty good, but
Yeah.
sidewalk fry, it's different
Oh,
for
so
sure.
good. Patat frites when you get them in the little cone. And now I'm going to drool. Okay. One other question I had for you was we had talked in email about the honeybush tea that I was drinking when we first started Cranford and finishing off my bag and finding out, sadly, that was a limited edition tea. But one of the things that I found so surprising about it was it's a tea, but it's really sweet. There's a reason why you called it honeybush. It was like sweet and vanilla. And I remember that day reading the packet and going, I don't know how it got that sweet. But you actually can make you have found ways to make things that are like it's just a dried plant, really taste flavorful and often very sweet. And I don't know how you do that magic.
We have gotten really good at that, I have to say.
Yeah.
The honey bush is an interesting example, a good example, actually, because why didn't name it? It is the name of a plant. It grows in South Africa. And so it is technically a tisane or an herbal tea because it's not Camellia sinensis, the tea plant. But in this country, if we put things in hot water, we call them tea.
Yeah.
And I would call it more of a bark, to be honest, similar to like
Oh, like
cinnamon.
cinnamon.
Yeah, it's a little more barky. That said, as you noted, it, especially when steeped, has this honey-like quality to it. I would say it has the aromatics and sweetness of honey with nothing done to it, just straight off.
Amazing.
It is definitely one of my favorite ingredients. I just love it for that reason. And so just the addition of small little things just enhance that or send it in different directions. And that's why I like it a lot.
Do you
And
have
it
any other
doesn't,
teas right now that have that bark in them?
we do have several honeybush teas. We have one, probably the most popular that we sell is called shortbread, and it
Oh, I
has
have
these
that.
like buttery notes to it. That one's pretty good. There's one that's just vanilla and it's kind of creamy. And then there's a chocolate hazelnut, like the cacao nibs,
Oh,
hazelnut, and that's really nice. Very satisfying. That one you can put milk with it and give you
oh,
that, especially if you have an evening sweet tooth, it can give you that like
yep.
unctuous chocolate note without having to have a bunch of sugar before bed.
And can you get those caffeine free?
The honey bush is all caffeine free
Oh, good.
out of
Okay.
the box. Sometimes we do pair it with a black tea because it's just the flavor profiles, it's just so nice and balanced. But we do have several that are just honey bush and maybe some herbs and spices type situation.
I just found out that there were, during the Civil War, pea, like dried pea, yellow pea, coffees where you would roast the peas and then grind them and make coffee. Also, sweet potato coffee, where you roast the bejujus out of that and grind it.
Okay.
So I know people have always needed to have something hot and calming. It does seem like tea is a very specific combination of flavors with that tea plant at the base. But then I know that there's also things like what is it, jasmine flower teas, where you put the little flower bud in the tea and it blooms in the water. That's not black tea. That's actually
That's a
piece,
flower.
that's a chunk of jasmine in your cup is what that is.
Yeah.
Are there any things that can grow anywhere else, anywhere in the States that can mimic?
There's Yaupon. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. Yaupon.
Okay.
I guess how you spell it. It's in the realm. There's also, I feel like I saw when I was at a tea show a few years ago, and there's a company from Georgia, and they were selling something. It was like the leaves of a plant. I do think
Katsu,
there are, boy, if we could make that tea, that would be,
right? You'd be rolling in dough.
yes, you really would. I wish I could think of what that was. Yeah, so there are like options.
Anything you want craftlit people to know, anything you want people just in general, because people on YouTube will stumble on it because of whatever we put the hashtags down on.
Hello, strangers. Yes, we would love for you to check us out. But just as your grocery prices have gone up over the years, so has advertising to meet new people. And we're just a small company in Oregon trying to make a great product, and we hate spending all of that on advertising people who have plenty of money.
Yeah.
So we would love for you to come check us out. It's plumdeluxe.com. If you want to treat yourself, we do have a literary gift tin that is like freaking adorable.
I
And it
have it upstairs. I'm going to
has
have it on
everything,
screen.
yeah, everything you need in it to get started and some flavors that we picked from you. But there's always, especially for the different seasons, depending on when you hear this, we've always got different samplers, either in full sizes or sample sizes if you want to try things.
I
We would love
love
for you to
that.
come check it out.
It's a lot of fun to get the little sampler sizes because, again, it's not a huge commitment. You get to taste something new. But when you find your new best friend, it's such a good feeling. Oh, and I love you, little bag. I need a bigger bag now.
Yes, why did I not order the big one in the
Yeah,
first place?
exactly.
Shoot.
Yeah, when I used up my honey bush, that was a sad day. But I wrote down the ones you said that have honey bush in them. So those will be getting ordered very shortly.
Yeah.
I'm going to try the watermelon and the Earl Grey. That's good. I'll drink up what I've got. Excellent.
Yeah, it was nice to catch up, actually,
Yeah,
for reals.
I love it. All right, go have fun making tea. And
Yes. All right, Heather, have a
all
good
right,
week.
you
Yes,
too.
bye.
Take care.
Bye.
You can find show notes for this episode and links to other episodes at craftlit.com. CraftLit also appears anywhere you can get a podcast: iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and on, including its own dedicated app. There are lots of ways to support CraftLit, from patreon.com/craftlit to craftlit.com memberships and channel memberships on YouTube. You can find out more details at craftlit.com/premium. And as always, thank you for your support. And remember, if your hands are too busy to pick up a book, at least you can turn one on.